Hello, and welcome to the Rooted and Rising podcast, a new initiative from Stony Point Center of the Presbyterian Church USA, where we will hear from secular and faith leaders, change makers in social justice. We'll hear what they're thinking and how what they are doing and what they're concerned about applies to what is happening today. So we look forward to many great conversations, and we hope you'll keep joining us. Hi, and welcome to the Rooted and Rising special edition. This is being recorded on Martin Luther King Day, 2026. We are here with the Reverend Dr. Cornell Edmonds. And before we get started, I just wanted to give you a little background since this is our first edition of this podcast of how we got here and some things that came up. So Stony Point Center, where we're filming this in the recording studio at the Allison House, but Stony Point Center was founded earlier then, but it was gifted to the church in '49 and grounded and founded in social justice. You can find a lot more about our history online, but the current iteration is Rooted and Rising and the building of Roots, which is the retreat-based organizing and outreach training school that's inspired by, but it's not a copy of, the Highlander folk school that was actually instrumental in King, as well as Rosa Parks and John Lewis and others as they did their work. Again, you can find out more about that. But I do want to say that I met Cornell through Bill Pinder, who was a previous director at Stony Point Center. And we were planning our first social justice summit in the spring of last year. And Bill and I were doing a lot of work, and he said, "Oh, you've got to talk to Cornell. You got to have Cornell here. He's a great guy." And he gave all sorts of background. And it was somewhere around there that I realized that we had planned the Social Justice Summit for the weekend of April 4th. So the day that we were going to hold it was April 4th. And as you know, April 4th was the day that King was assassinated. And as I was talking to Cornell at some point, Cornell said we shouldn't really celebrate Martin Luther King Day in January around his birthday. We really should celebrate King on April 4th so that we can recognize that impact. He said it much more eloquently than I did. So it was important to me that we circle back around as we're at Martin Luther King's commemoration celebration day to have another conversation with Cornell. Cornell's going to share a little bit about his thoughts, passions around Martin Luther King, and we'll just see where this conversation goes. So, without me talking more, Cornell, how are you?
I am wonderful. I am absolutely wonderful.
Good.
Happy
That's
birthday to you.
exactly. So, tell me a little bit about what you're thinking.
Uh, and as I shared earlier, if there is pause, reflection, in a previous life, I was an attorney.
Yeah.
And I understand the implications of silence, the right to remain silent, and to be still and know that God is God. And
Yes.
I'm thinking very little because my mind is still,
Yeah.
especially on a day like this. It
Mhm.
is to not think, but to just keep that space open because amazing things are happening, and the spiritual gravitational force for me right now is around the birth date of Dr. King. I think we should celebrate the birthday, but commemorate
Yeah.
the date of his uh, the assassination in the same way that we celebrate the birth date of Jesus.
Yeah.
But we really commemorate, and where
Mm.
we continue to just grow and move forward is in the death date and the resurrection. There can be no resurrection without death. And so I see the parallels are real, and that's why I think the important time, the critical time for us going forward is commemoration of the date of his assassination.
Yes.
But the short answer to your question is I'm not thinking a whole lot. My mind is just it's open, it's stayed on the
Mm,
possibilities, the messianic possibilities that God ushers into the world.
right. Right. That's fantastic. Um, and as we think of King, and as I think of King, um, there's a couple things that come to mind. I'm working on getting through where do we go from here? Um, it's been my commitment, but I'm a slow reader. And that was King saying, "Here we are at a turning point. Are we going to go to community or are we going to go to chaos?" And that's a reflection I have. Um, and there's others. There's also the reflection of what was happening, back in April when he was assassinated, and what his last speech was. He gave the mountaintop speech. I may not get there with you, and that just rings painfully true for me. When I think of King, I just think of the what could be, but I don't think that we can always live in the what could have been. We need to live in the what what we can do now through that. So, with some of those thoughts, if you could share some of your thoughts on King.
I think the title of that book,
Mm,
Where Do We Go From Here? I think it's somewhat autobiographical. I
okay.
think that in my understanding of Dr. King and the the incarnate being, the flesh, that there was chaos and community in the
Yeah.
midst of that, and that was never more apparent than the last year of his life. Chaos
Okay.
and community. In that book, I think the last will and testament is
Mm,
resonant in that book. It's the World House essay.
okay.
And he kind of summarized it in the same way that I think that God divinely summarizes it, because God first speaks the possibilities into the chaos. He
Okay.
speaks the possibilities of community into chaos, and
Mm,
just says that community can be built around light, a light
hmm
that darkness can never overcome. And so I think that King understood that in ways that uh, the world needs to, that there is so much light in this
mm,
world. And Dr. King, no pun intended, he shone a light on the light. He pointed us in the direction of what the implications of our better angels could be.
hmm
But he reached a point of regret.
Okay.
And at the latter part of his life, I think he started to see much more clearly where we are today. A lot of the energy, a lot of our emphasis is on social justice. I am a strong, strong, strong advocate of social justice, but I think that that only touches upon part of the equation. And Dr. King, he realized that and then had some regrets about the social justice successes.
Okay.
Said that integration had kind of brought the oppressed, the marginalized, into a house on fire.
Mm,
And would the people have been safer outside of the
right.
house of integration because the
Right.
house was on fire? And so
Mm,
we needed to move to a place beyond the social justice. And I think that Dr. King, and I heard this from one of his soldiers, if you will,
hmm
a mentor, the Reverend Dr. Philip Newell, who was a
hmm
Washington, D.C. point person for the 1963 march. And
Okay.
so he was very, very involved with Dr. King and involved with SNCC and leaned closer to the SNCC uh, people, although he was a contemporary and classmate of Dr. King in Massachusetts when they were in a seminar together. and a study group together. But what Dr. Newell would say about justice and his definition when I asked was it's God's righteousness touched down on the human community. And the human community cannot lose sight of God's righteousness and think it's about them and them alone. And I think that is where social justice can lead us. And I think Dr. King came to understand that if we do not keep God in the midst of what the gains are happening, and so what we need in this time, what he felt was needed in that time were not justice advocates, but firemen and firewomen, fire people.
Mm.
And that just kind of brings into deeper focus when I think on the works of Dr. King, just the utter brilliance that we cannot land on what he has done and put a period at the end of the sentence.
Mm.
But where does that comma go? It's a
Right.
run-on sentence when God spoke order
Mm.
into the chaos. It was a run-on sentence. Let there be light. It's a run-on sentence. And after that comma, what is the light? And we get a glimpse of it. As a Christian minister,
Mm.
my take is why Jesus is the light of the world. Let there be light. That order,
Yeah.
that community of light that is spoken into the chaos of all that is, all that was, and all that we're dealing with today. What light can be spoken into the chaos of our time?
So, so if I can, two things. Can you tell us what SNCC is for those who are not familiar to start with?
SNCC was the organization, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Council,
Okay.
and it was organized by young Black college students,
Hmm.
instrumental in the lunch counter sit-ins and other things. Stokely Carmichael was at one time chair of SNCC, John Lewis. And
Hmm.
so it was that young energy that was not much different in age from Dr. King.
Right.
And they were embracing the vision that Dr. King had put out there, the vision of nonviolence,
Hmm.
but nonviolence from the perspective of the young minds, that young energy. Nonviolence is much more difficult
Mm.
when you are a young teen that is filled with energy and
That
that
fire.
restrain
Yes.
that exactly that.
Huh.
Uh, and so
Yeah.
Dr. Newell kind of stood in the breach between Dr. King and the SNCC folk,
Okay.
but he would never depart from Dr. King, even if in meetings he agreed with James Bevel, with Stokely Carmichael, with
Hmm.
others who were instrumental, with Diana Nash.
Right.
Uh, and so that helped me to process some things and some things about Dr. King uh, and how I can embrace that legacy today and hopefully do something with it.
Right. Right. Thank you. Another thought that you spurred was this chaos and speaking into it and letting there be light. And it made me think that almost as soon as God spoke into that and, the creation story ends, we get right back into the chaos, right? We get the fruit, the forbidden fruit. And soon after that, we get Cain and Abel story. So, um, order appears, but it's still in a chaotic world. And it just made me really think about where we are today in that there's been so many voices for a reordering, and social justice and humanity focus. But there's a pull. Maybe it's like a pull towards chaos, or maybe it's not even chaos, but it just made me think about that duality of the human experience.
Yeah, and I think humanity is that chaos uh,
Mm.
that God succeeded in speaking order over nature.
Right.
But then he put humanity into the garden. And
Right.
that is the chaos. That is where the disobedience occurred. The
Right.
chaos in terms of fratricide, the first homicide, is
Right.
humanity against humanity. It wasn't nature
Right.
doing it. And
Right.
one of the existential crises today is the environmental crisis, where
Right.
the order of nature has not been disrupted by nature, but disrupted by humanity. And so
Mhm.
we are that
Mhm.
chaos that
Yeah.
the light needs to be spoken into and spoken to because we can wreak havoc on all things.
Yeah. That's interesting. Another thing that I was thinking as you were talking was where did it start? Because I'm very interested in helping people move from where they are and the inkling of the change that they want to see to action towards that. And King had an origin, he had an active space, and then he had this reflection that you're talking about with some regret on where things had moved. But I'm wondering how much you know about King before his public life. And maybe when I say public life, I mean nationally visible, active life. Like, do you have an inkling of, where he started and what drove him to be that voice, that leader?
Where he started was he was the embodiment of
Okay.
what could be the aspirations of someone of African descent
Mm.
growing up and playing by a particular set of rules. And the rules, in my view, allow those on the margins access to money, but not access to freedom.
Mm. Okay.
Uh, and wealth sort of dictates how the energy of even the oppressed is spent, which helps generate more wealth
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
wealthy.
Yeah.
But you can get some money as a result. So he had a pathway to make a whole lot of money
Hmm.
as a scholar, as a philosopher, as a in to remain in the family business, which
Right.
was religion,
Right.
and that has been a means of survival of work. As was one of the few professions that a black person could prosper in was the
Yes.
ministry, and to have some autonomy, even if it was not freedom. So
Right.
he was really on that path,
Right.
and his father kind of
Yeah.
helped it along the way and opening the door for uh, the pastorate at Dexter Avenue.
Hmm.
Dexter Avenue was an interesting place because there was a lot of social justice energy that had happened at Dexter Avenue on the
Okay.
part of Vernon John. And the church, in some ways, rejected that because it would put pressures upon the church that could impact its prosperity.
Okay.
He was in overalls and selling fish and selling fruit out in front of the church, and how scandalous it was, and people would look past the scandal of poverty, of
Mm.
oppression, and look at the scandal of a pastor just dressed in overalls and selling
Mm.
stuff in front of the church. And so Dr. King comes in the wake of that. And
Okay.
so the origin, I got to believe, is where the origin is seemingly with any prophetic anointed person. It's with God.
Yeah.
That wasn't King's desire, but the call came.
Yeah.
The call came, and he could not overcome it any more than Isaiah could, any more than Jeremiah could, any more than Ezekiel, any more than Hosea, any more than Jonah. Uh,
Mm.
and so I think that it began with God.
Yeah. That's interesting. Another thing that I'm laughing about is just as Presbyterians, polity and order. And I was just thinking of the change in his ministry from serving a congregation, pulpit pastor, and obviously he's still, gosh, did he preach? But a friend of mine, Reverend Dr. Eric Elness from the UCC tradition, walked from Arizona to Washington with a message of progressive Christianity. And it's a great book, Asphalt Jesus, if you get a chance. But he had to ask his session, I'm not sure if they call it a session in the UCC, for permission because he had just taken his sabbatical. And he said, I know you don't want me to do this, but I feel this call. I keep hearing, walk to Washington with this story. And they said, all right, do it, and we will organize the stops along the way. So it's a great thing for the congregation. But I just wonder, just thinking about what were those elders thinking when King shifted? To move into the public sphere. Was there that conversation of, no, you can't do that. You're supposed to be doing your work here. You're, earning your pay here. Or was it yeah, we're right behind you. So, yeah, I don't know that I'll know the answer to that, but it just made me laugh.
Yeah, and it makes me think of Dr. Carter G. Woodson and his work
Okay.
on the miseducation of the Negro.
Okay.
And I think that may have been the reasonable and logical thinking of the leadership within that church, but it was really
Okay.
a miseducation. And Dr. King would kind of speak to some of that in one of his notable quotes, where
Okay.
he says that the end does not justify the means,
Hmm.
but the end must be coexistent in the means. So he saw a wholly different end
Huh.
means analysis than the leadership might have seen because we've been conditioned, we've been educated to believe that the end justifies the means.
Right.
And where you may get a
Huh.
vision, God's vision, and those around you who will now object, I think that part of that objection is based upon a level of education and knowledge.
Right.
It was the organized leaders of the religious community that objected to Jesus,
Yeah.
his teachings, his interpretation, his actions, and I see the parallels with Dr. King.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. Um, So, as we're talking about other voices that impacted his direction, I wonder because King was involved in the sanitation strike in Memphis. That was where he was putting his energies in 68 when he was giving the speech before he was assassinated. But there was there was secular leaders and secular spaces as well. And one of the things that I feel passionate about is bringing together secular leaders in social justice with faith leaders in social justice, because I think that there is synergies and strengths that that come from that. So I just wonder if you have any thoughts on King's engagement secularly as well, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure how that question came
It
across.
makes perfect sense. And
Okay.
the abstract answer is what evil are you prepared to default to?
Okay.
And secularism requires default to particular evils that can impact the world.
Okay.
Uh, Dr. King uh, spoke often of the triple evils that were identified by Dr. Howard Thurman in his book. Of, and the title of the book just jumped out of
That's okay.
it'll
We can
come
go back and look it up.
uh, the Jesus and the Disinherited,
Okay.
Dr. Thurman's book. And it is rumored that was one of the books Dr. King had uh, on him when
Mm,
he was locked up in the Birmingham jail. He had Dr. Thurman's book. But Dr. King, he began to understand deeply the triple evils. And a lot of his success and energy had been focused upon one of those evils, the triple
Okay.
evils, racism,
Hmm.
a lot of energy, the civil rights, the voting rights gains
Yes.
on racism. But
Yes.
then there was militarism.
Yep.
And so the pivot to
Hmm.
the war on
Yep.
Vietnam, and then greed, the pivot
Yes.
to economics. And so what he then saw was an integration that one evil could not be suppressed without suppressing them all. And
Right.
so when you talk about connection to
Yes.
secular leaders often lean in the direction of one of those evils.
Okay.
And it then will mitigate any progress against the others. If you
Okay.
allow racism at any point, it's going to mitigate against economic gains and gains in peace.
Hmm.
If you allow war at any point, it's going to mitigate against gains in racism and economic gains.
Okay.
And you see the three working together, and he was seeing the three working together. And with the three working together, it meant that he did not reject the gains in race, but he started to see it in light of the other gains. And so those who were
Mm.
around him were saying, well, no, you need to slow down. I mean, we've made progress. We've made progress. And that would be that it is false progress. What gain is it for someone that can sit at any lunch counter, but they do
Right.
not have the money to pay for lunch?
Right.
And
Right.
that
Right.
money is being petered away when the national budget is so skewed towards militarism
Right.
that poverty is allowed to prosper within the
Right.
country and the world. If
Yeah.
that
And that
makes
hasn't changed, has it?
mm,
Gosh, if you just put the defense budget up against, SNAP or, any of those, it just dwarfs it. And I'm glad that you brought that up because the Poor People's Campaign was rooted in King. And King was, I would say, he was shifting towards what you were saying and seeing this intertwined nature. And today, Reverend William Barber, as well as Reverend Liz Theo Harris, are carrying on that Poor People's Campaign. But part of it is, anti-militarism, as well as anti-racism, as well as, poverty. And it's actually the first march that my son and I went on together was in Jefferson City years ago. But we got trained on how to get arrested if you want to do that, or how not to get arrested, and like what it was going to be like. And it was transformational for my high school son to be involved in that. Where am I going with this? But the focus on fair wages
mm,
and winners and there's winners and losers. I would say the losers in that have a really hard argument because, especially right now, the concentration of wealth in the hands of the few is a real threat to stability in this country. And that backlash against sharing in an even way, or even closer to an even way, I think a lot of that is what we're seeing now. And it's interesting that the weaving of the racism. I don't need to go too deep, but from Stephen Miller to the Trump administration, there's a lot of rooting there, and then the militarism. We have an armada in the Caribbean,
mm,
and we've just invaded another country, and that's right there. And then we have this affordability crisis right at that same time. It's not that we haven't had an affordability crisis. There's a lot of people that, I will point to that have said that there's an affordability. We have over the last count was 720,000 people unhoused in this country. With the changes to healthcare, they're expecting over 1 million people to be counted in 2026 without a roof over their head. So I think King was right on in looking at those being intertwined. So I don't know that I'm adding to that conversation other than reflection,
Mm.
but it's still a struggle that we're doing today.
Yeah,
Does that
and
make
also
sense?
reflection, I think, just in the midst of it, in
Yeah.
the midst of what you may know or understand, you get an aha moment.
Mm.
And that has been, for me, just a series of aha moments with Dr. King at
Okay.
any point that I think I know or understand. That aha moment has to come to remind me that I do not know enough. I do not understand it.
Mm. Right.
And that he just kind of put that out there and made those connections. When I go to the voting booth,
Hmm.
that aha moment has to come that there are people who don't have anything to eat.
Yeah.
There are people whom bombs are raining down upon.
Yes.
What gain is it for me to pull that lever when the leaning of some who may be of goodwill is to give militarism,
Yeah.
to give racism, to give greed a pass? We
Right.
cannot give it a pass. We cannot be lukewarm about it. And part of, I think, our training is to be exposed to the mind of Dr. King, the work of Dr. King that's in the public sphere. And uh, no, it is what it is. It can't be changed. Uh, we will strive to build upon it. But sometimes before we strive to understand the mind of which it came about and how that mind was evolving and unsatisfied with
Yeah.
what some might have seen as gain. They might have seen it as an end, and he
Yep.
kept seeing it as a means, and why nonviolence was so critical, and
Yeah.
how that plays into the sanitation workers strike, and things kind of funneling into Memphis, which was a divine necessity. I weep at the thoughts of it over and over again. I mean, I was at a service where Billy Kyles spoke, the Reverend Billy Kyles, who was one of the pastors in Memphis, and he was a very, very good friend of Dr. King. And they were planning to have dinner that night, and he had arrived at the Lorraine Motel. He was at street level. Dr. King was on the balcony. They're talking,
Yeah.
and bam,
Wow.
uh, that I cannot
Wow.
remove that thought and not lament at that thought. But the
Mm.
mind of Dr. King says to me that it was necessary. It was as necessary as Jesus on the cross saying,
Mm.
Father, forgive them,
Right.
for they know not what they are doing. And the words that Jesus speaks from the cross, and that ultimately he would breathe his last. Dr. King breathed his last, but without Jesus breathing that last, there
Right.
is no resurrection.
Right.
Without
Right.
Dr. King breathing that last,
Mm.
there is no possibility of a social resurrection that is right at
Mm.
our fingertips.
Right. We just need to realize it. Yeah, the unsatisfied was what grabbed me when you started talking there. That not satisfied with the gains that we've had as an end. And then you also said voting. And it makes me think that our current discourse as a society is very focused on politics and voting, left and right, have nots, Republicats and Democrats. Um, and that's only a piece of it. If we think that a country and the leader is going to save us and walk us out of this, I think we are sadly mistaken. That the leader is just a leader. And yes, we try to put reins on them, and 4 years and 8 years is enough. Um, but that change is a societal change, right? It's why we say social justice and not political justice as an aim to what we're doing. I mean, I guess political justice is a thing that would be good too. But just remembering that voting is incredibly important. because so much can be stopped through politics and started, but that the change really happens in the community, that beloved community. Um, yeah, wow, this has been really rich and it really
And
ties
to
into
not
your
be,
faith. Keep going.
I'm sorry, to not be illusory about it.
Yep.
Uh, I've been voting practically every year since I was 18. I'm now 68, so 50 years of, and I've yet to cast a vote.
Okay.
I've gone through the motions, the illusory
Okay.
aspect of it.
Right.
Uh, the artist Gil Scott-Heron, uh, a brilliant figure, and his works, I listened to his works alongside Dr. King. Two of the great uh, things that he has done. He is the co-writer of Johannesburg. He wrote In the Bottle.
Okay.
He wrote a song, Message to the Messengers. And one of his poems, well, also he wrote what is one of the most sampled soundtracks, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised.
Right.
Uh, and he wrote a poem, Black History. I
Mm.
recommend that to your attention. And one particular line in that poem is about semantics. Uh, if I'm able to be liberal with language in the
Please.
podcast, is
Yep.
that semantics are a bitch.
Mm.
And semantics become one of the weapons of those in power. And you can then articulate things
Mm.
to your convenience. And we are deeply, deeply caught up in a semantical a semantical game.
Yes.
Uh,
Mm.
I believe it's when he talks about his song Ronnie the Raygun,
Okay.
and he's talking and doing some critique on President Reagan.
Hmm.
He assesses that less than a majority of people cast their vote
Yes.
for Reagan. So a majority of people did not. And if a majority of people voted for nobody, then nobody should be the president. And
Fair.
so we get caught up in the semantics. Oh,
Mm.
this one won. It's a semantical game that is played by those in power to make us believe
Mm.
through miseducation that
Right.
there is an outcome that is not
Right.
the true outcome. I give some credit to the current administration or some of its people,
Yep.
particularly Kellyanne Conway,
Okay.
who came up with that phrase, alternative facts.
Right.
We have to listen and hear that because we are in a world, we've been in a world
Yes.
of alternative facts. The difference is that some are manipulating that in such a way to advance their wealth and power,
Yep.
while the rest of us are looking at it as being something that is illogical and unreasonable. It's perfectly logical when
Yes.
you have freed your mind from the mental slavery of the semantical reality that says, we want you to think about things a certain way. It's a kind of Jedi mind trick. And we've been exposed to that. And Dr. King takes us beyond that Jedi mind trick. Maybe he was the Jedi. Maybe he was that,
Obi-Wan.
and he
Okay.
could do that. But
Huh.
we are embroiled so much in that on both sides. And how can we advance? How can we do what Bob Marley exhorts us
Hmm.
to do, what Marcus Garvey exhorted us to do, what Carter G. Woodson exhorted us to do, and to free ourselves from the mental slavery. None
Hmm.
but ourselves can
Can
free our
free our
mind.
minds. Yeah.
And how long will they kill our prophets as we stand
Stand
aside?
aside and look. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. King, the prophet,
Yeah.
How long will they kill our prophets as we stand aside and look?
Wow. Well, that's probably a really good place to leave it. Um, but I'd like to shift to a few questions because I want to hear where you are now. So I'd like to start with what keeps you up at night, Cornell? What keeps you up at night?
Uh, Two things.
Yeah.
I'm 68, uh, having to go to the bathroom frequently uh, at night.
I knew that was coming, but keep going.
But I'm bump.
Exactly.
In another life, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian.
Well, there you go. There's your chance.
And it's not an issue per se, but it is a phenomenon. What keeps me up at night is any dissatisfaction with the present. And so I'm no longer in the moment and I'm trying to resolve and reconcile the future.
Okay.
When thoughts about the future, what I might have to do, who might be, what's going to come up, what are the, I don't know. I don't know. And that keeps me up at night. Uh,
Mm,
and when I can kind of reorient myself to what I know. It was John Lewis, I believe, who said, uh, I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. And so
right.
when I can be comfortable with that, with who holds the
Mm,
future, I can then
yeah.
get back to sleep. Otherwise, not being comfortable, not being clear on who holds the future, that keeps me up at night. I hope that's not too abstract.
No, that totally made sense. You actually answered my next question, which is, what are you doing about that? What are you doing to change it? And you know, you have to remind yourself on who holds that future. And what I'm hearing you say is, um, you need to move away from that anxiety and move into like a space of trust, I guess. Am I
The
right?
moment, the moment, to
Okay.
get back into the moment. The
Right.
moment is where we are, and
Right.
that is constantly shifting, but it's creating the past, our past.
Mm,
Each moment is creating a little bit more of the past. And the past is somewhat settled. And the past, we can make very, very rational decisions about that. Dr. King made rational decisions about the past. He
mm,
made those in the moment. And it
yes.
created anxiety even for him up
Yes.
until he took his last breath. And
Mm,
many around him thought that he was suffering from mental illness. He was suffering from clinical depression.
mm,
He was suffering from PTSD.
yeah.
And many thought that it had matured to a state of mental illness that brought into question whether or not he was equipped to lead.
Right.
He was equipped to lead because he understood what a leader is. And I
Yeah.
will pivot back to something you had asked. A leader doesn't direct
Hmm.
that. Those are the managers, those are the lieutenants,
Yep.
those are the people who are in the military, you would call them field grade or company grade.
Okay.
Those are the folk, and that's where your leaders are going to reside. I'm sorry, your
Right.
managers are going to reside.
Okay.
Your leader, principally, the task is to produce other leaders. Jesus
Okay.
does that over the course of 3 years,
Yep.
and we have the legacy of that today.
Yes.
Leaders that Jesus produced. King
Yes.
produced other leaders. He understood and figured that out. And so those other leaders continued and carried forward the energy, whether to address issues of race, militarism, or greed.
Yeah.
He has produced leaders in each of those areas. So he was a genuine leader, as Jesus was a genuine leader.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so thankful for this conversation because we need to be having reminders of King, um, because that ripple keeps going. There's direct leaders that he was mentoring while he was with us, and then there's those leaders have mentored other leaders. So there's a progression. And if we don't remember where it was rooted, and we don't hear that prophetic vision, because, gosh, his oration, his ability to put thoughts into other people's minds was just stellar. It was amazing. So my next question for you, Cornell, is where do you see hope today?
Uh,
What gives you hope?
uh, I don't see it with my eyes.
Okay.
I see it with my faith. Uh, I and so with my faith, I see hope all around. I
Okay.
see hope in this time that we're spending together. It's just out of faith. I see, ironically, hope in those who are what I might consider to be my enemies.
Mm,
You see hope because there is possibility of transformation. Who would have seen hope in Saul,
right.
persecutor? Who can see hope in the current president? Who can see hope in a figure like Stephen Miller?
Right.
Who can see hope in some of uh, the followers of that very distorted vision?
Wow. Okay.
Who can? But if we do not see hope there,
Mm,
we only see a small vision of hope. That if we step into it, it will be very fragile.
huh.
Uh, During the civil rights movement, there were uh, often people, the racists who were on the side, screaming, shouting, throwing rocks, doing all sorts of egregious things at
Yes.
the marchers. In not seeing hope in them, which King sought to
Mm,
transform through love, and why love was so important, to not defeat your enemies, but to transform.
yeah.
And with those who sought to defeat and those who thought they were defeated, uh, they are surprised because those folk did not go away.
Right.
And they have reemerged with the same vitriol because we did
Yes.
not see hope in them.
Oh, that's fascinating.
We have to love our enemies. We have to seek to use love, not just as a means, but seek it as an end to transform. And Dr. King spoke of that often, to
Yes.
transform, to bring
Yes.
to new understanding and new relationship, that we could have common vision of what is that orderly world that God spoke light into. That's
Yeah.
where my hope is. The mission statement for my congregation is love, Love. It's Christian Presbyterian Church. And so the LOVE is a acronym for L, to live out the Great Commission of Jesus Christ. The O, we order ourselves under Jesus Christ's Lordship. The V, we vow to nurture all God's creation. And the E, we evangelize the gospel. But it is to remind us of what is the greatest commandment and the greatest thing that God calls us to do. And
It's
Dr.
love.
King made that abundantly clear, is to love, to use that sole force of love to transform both our friends and our enemies.
Wow, you really put that into some thoughts for me to bring it back to King, the dream of white kids and black kids living together that brought together those that were throwing stones because they're not going away. And where we are today, those that are throwing stones are not going away. And this ties it back into transformation. And if our work is not towards forgiveness, transformation, and bringing people to a new understanding together, we will just move to the next layer of who's going to fight for the crown so they can make the decisions. And then the next person will be motivated to then steal that crown back, if that makes any sense. The people that, because you mentioned Miller and Trump and, whoever you want to say are on the other side, have this opportunity to win the midterms. okay, you're winning, but if you're not transforming, you're really just perpetuating a cycle, I
Exactly.
think.
It's on that pendulum, and that pendulum has us
Yes.
divided. We have not sought a path of unity because each side has declared victory. And in
Yeah.
that declaration of victory, there were many left outside. Abraham Lincoln attempted to accomplish that, but
Right.
the bullet found him far too soon.
Yeah. Seems to
And
be seems to be a thread here.
exactly, and uh, but the bullet can kill the dreamer, as the bullet can kill the
Right.
incarnate
Can't kill the dream.
Messiah, but it cannot kill God's promise of
Yeah.
restoration, of reconciliation. We have infinite opportunity to be something that is so far greater than what we've accomplished, something that would move into that space of divine perfection, because that's where we began.
Right.
And I see as a clergy person that has unbound optimism, regardless of how my day might be. And my day is full of stuff that would interrupt the optimism,
Yes.
that would keep me awake at night.
Yes.
It's full of it because that's what I've signed on to.
Right.
And how do I seek out and find that space? Dr. King has been so important in any time I've sought to kind of move in a different direction. I just get reminders, vocational reminders, personal reminders. The individual who is regarded as the adopted daughter of Mrs. Rosa Parks, the unofficial adopted daughter, Elaine Eason Steele,
Yeah.
is an honorary member of our congregation.
Wow. That's
She has
fantastic.
spoke countless and she's shared stories. And through her sharing, we were able to meet and have at the church a Presbyterian minister named Jane Gunther. Jane Gunther was a military bride, pregnant in her 20s and on the bus.
Mm.
And Mrs. Parks was able to affirm that, yes,
Wow.
from her account and what she told, that yes, she was actually there. And so it keeps drawing back in as
Yeah.
a young, recent college graduate for a very, very brief time.
Yeah.
I had Yolanda King on my staff,
Right.
Dr. King's daughter. I've
Right.
had occasion to come across other family members, but all of these things keeps happening not based upon my planning or desire, but I believe that God keeps pulling me back into that place to see, to hear, to taste, to smell, to understand, because that gives the world endless possibilities. And who knows? I might waive my right to remain silent and say the wrong thing and catch a bullet at some point.
Right. Let's hope not.
But if I do, it is for reasons
Yeah.
that at a homegoing service, uh, the congregation would hear Mahalia Jackson singing
Yeah.
or recording of her singing,
Right.
My living shall not be in vain.
Right. Right. All right. While we're talking about songs, the one that's going through my head is Sam Cooke in 1963 woke up with a song on his heart that he went in and had to record. Um, and maybe that transformation that you're talking about is that change that's going to come that Sam was compelled to speak about. He doesn't articulate what that change is, but maybe it's that transformation of those who see the world differently so that we can find peace and community together. So thank you very much, Cornell. Cornell is the pastor at Covenant Presbyterian in New York City. It is also known as the Church of the United Nations, as it sits very close to it. And I just want to thank you for all that you've done and all that you continue to do, Cornell, in shining that light. As King said, it's it's in the darkness that you can see the stars. And we need to keep remembering that and shining and pointing people towards those stars. And I think that you've done that quite a bit. So thank you so much for this time. I look forward to our next conversation.
And thank you so much. And if I could just
Yeah,
leave with a quote from Dr. King also that aligns with what you said.
great.
He said that the things that we see are based upon the shadow that is cast by the things that we do not.
Okay.
And so I thank you
Mm,
for inviting me to come and talk with you to uh, you know keep your mind and your heart and your spirit and your work open at the Stony Point Center for the things that we do not see, for the people that we do not see, for the issues that we often
mm,
see. I thank you for your work and your leadership.
thank you. All right. Look forward to more conversations. Take care, Cornell.
Thank you.